Welcome to the TomorrowZone Catalyst Podcast, where we explore the future of innovation, leadership, and transformation. I'm your host, Deb Reuben. Today, we're diving into a topic that's at the heart of every successful change initiative: communication. Today, my guest is Cindy Skalicky. She is a master of messaging, storytelling, and executive communication. She has helped leaders at companies like Google, Microsoft, DuPont, and JP Morgan Chase to elevate their ability to communicate with clarity and confidence and make an impact. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Deb. It's so great to see you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so glad to finally get you on the show. We're going to have fun.
Yes, we are.
So I was wondering if you could just start by sharing a couple of the highlights of your story that led to the type of work that you're doing today.
Ooh, sure. I would be happy to. Well, I live in Colorado now, but I'm originally from Chicagoland area. And when I was in my undergraduate degree at St. Mary's College, the one that's in Notre Dame, there's like 30 different St. Mary's colleges. So I met a professor who really changed my path. And he was a professor who taught rhetoric. And that is exactly what put me on the path that I remain on today, although it's been winding. So rhetoric is the art and science of persuasion itself. And so I became locked in and completely excited about the first assignment that I was given by Dr. Pauly, this professor I had. I actually just wrote about it last week when I was evaluating the contentious State of the Union address from last week.
It was. I bet that was juicy.
It was. Well, I was like, we're going to bring levity here. We're going to bring rationality to this analysis, and that's what I like to do. But yeah, I had to evaluate a commencement address that was given by Hillary Rodham Clinton back in the 90s. She addressed Wellesley College for a commencement address. And the question I received as a student, I had to write a paper on it, was this an effective rhetorical act or not? Why? Use Aristotle's triangle of rhetorical theory to prove your answer. So this is really the exercise of how my brain works. And it's what kind of jumped me into my future. I will look at a message and a messenger, just like an engineer looks under the hood of a car. I'm checking out which gears are sort of stuck and not moving well, and which gears are running smoothly in the speech. And in the end, I did say that Clinton's speech was an effective rhetorical act. In other words, she did her job. She persuaded her audience using the right tools in her toolbox. So that was a huge stepping stone for me. I later did stints in global advertising, global PR with a healthcare kind of angle. And I got into this scientific storytelling. And that's really where we live now. I've run On Point Communications for almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in September. And we work with nerds.
Awesome. You're my people.
Yes. We work with really sciencey, techie people who need help telling their stories.
Wow. Well, that is definitely something that this world could use, because I run into a lot of frustrated nerds who are trying to get people to understand, and they don't know how to convey their stories. So let's dive into that a little bit. If you think about just the reality of our world, communication is so dang important, but many leaders haven't received executive communication training in years.
That's so true. Or at all.
Yeah, for real. And then especially like in the nerd realm, there's a lot of technical education, but not often a lot of communication about how do you communicate your great invention to somebody who's not technical. So what do you see as some of the biggest communication challenges that are faced by today's leaders, and how do they impact innovation?
Yeah. How long is this podcast again? No, I'm being, well, here's the interesting thing that I've noticed in the last maybe year or two of having done now so many different stories with people. I've learned that to a lot of leaders, the word story alone is scary. And to your point earlier about, we haven't even been trained on this either in a long time or at all, I'll often ask an audience to recollect the 5-point story arc that a lot of leaders probably learned in literature class, right? When you're studying Shakespeare or something. And, maybe they were asleep that day in school or something, but sometimes I have to spend a little time teaching that arc, just the very basic gist of the 5-point story arc. So I guess I've learned that I've had to back up my starting point in a lot of areas when it comes to storytelling, because they either learned it a way, way long time ago and they've completely forgotten it. But just the concept of story is pretty scary. To people, it often means, oh, I have to tell like a long novel of a story that's got like movie length. And that is not true at all. So once we understand as nerds that your story actually can be about the data, right, that you love and lead us toward those nitty gritty, juicy parts that you're really good at, they ease up a little bit more and think, oh, wait, I'm allowed to tell a story about whatever it is, myself, the data point, the origin of this business. And so those are some of the recent things I've noticed about where people are starting from, which is a little earlier than I thought.
Yeah, sometimes we just got to get back to basics.
Yeah, and they're all there. The stories are inside of us, and it's just like you have to poke a little bit, and then suddenly the well comes out with the water.
Well, that's I mean, this is a continual challenge. We're constantly working in between business and technology people, so we're running into this
right
on a daily basis. And I was curious, just like the challenge of bridging the gap between those technical experts who really are in the weeds. They've got the data that they love so much. They're creative in that technical realm, but then, bridging the gap between that and the stakeholders, typically business that are non-technical. So often technology leaders struggle to communicate complex ideas in a way that can actually resonate with a broader audience. And I wonder, what strategies you might have to help them simplify or clarify their messages for non-technical people.
Sure. I love your the name of your podcast, and your TomorrowZone is such a great, like the word zone is what I'm honing in on. I love the part that it's futuristic too, but we use zone as well in some of our terminology. We call it the zone of brilliance when we're thinking about what a person can bring to a storyline or a presentation that's from their personal zone of brilliance, their passion. So when we need to come up with some small tips about presenting to an audience that's, we've got some technical information, we need to persuade, let's say, a board of directors to go forward on whatever, some financing, some kind of direction. And I actually did this just last quarter with a huge, with a corporate team to a corporate board of executives for a Fortune 250 company, and we had to figure out story, and they know the technical stuff. So what we need to figure out is where is the audience? So we have to get out of our own heads. I think that's maybe the biggest thing that I end up helping people do when it's all said and done. And I look back and say, hey, 12 months ago when you started this with me, what have you learned that's like one of your biggest nuggets? And that's usually what I'll hear is that I need to get out of my head and into the head of the audience. And this sounds so simple, Deb, but it's really not. It means that you have to stop everything that you know and everything that you want to say. And you have to sit in the chair of that board of directors member and wonder, what do they know about what I'm about to present? What do they already know? What are they questioning? What's the risk that they see, which might not be legitimate, and who cares, right? It's the risk they see. And then how am I going to tap the emotion? So it's all about the feeling. We have, if you're going to take one thing from this segment of the podcast, it is this. What is the emotion that your audience is starting at when they come to your presentation? What's the starting emotion? And if you can figure that out, then maybe you can meet them there with a storyline that I would help articulate. And then what's the ending emotion you hope they get to? And how are we going to bridge, to your word, how are we going to make that bridge with a story? And the story, it can be 60 seconds long. In fact, most of them are for these presentations or even a half day. I mean, really, we're talking like a 2-minute, nice, tight, specific, sticky, relevant story that will launch people's imaginations so that they feel playful and innovative about what it is we're going to do today. And that's really all you need. So I'd say find the starting emotion of your audience and how do you meet them there with a story?
I love that. And you use so many nice, juicy words to describe that 60-second experience, which is probably about all anybody can take these days in a TikTok world.
Right, right, right.
But you said it's tight, it's sticky, it's specific, and it's relevant. And I don't remember all the other juicy words that you
That's okay.
used, but like that is powerful in itself.
Well, and I just want to add one thing there that like it can take a hot second to come up with that short story. Like this is something that sometimes I can get it done in a session with somebody who brings to me something juicy, but this is where the work is. It's like Abraham Lincoln writing the Gettysburg Address in whatever it was, 432 words or something like that. Well, it wasn't a 5-paragraph essay, friends. He wrote it and was so concise, and that takes effort. So that's the part where we come in and attach to you and say, we're going to get the juice out of this story so that you're not dumping all this superfluous stuff that takes away from the poignance of the moment.
Yeah, I love how laser focused it is, but you're right. I mean, it does take a lot of work and a lot of energy to boil it down to that laser focused, powerful, impactful story. So, today we're all faced with, so much change. Our business landscape is evolving. And I was curious, we explore AI a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious how you're seeing things because, it's such a human thing, storytelling. But with AI playing such a growing role in the world of business right now, what do you see for the future? Like, how do you see this impacting executive communication? And should leaders approach communication differently in an AI-driven world?
Well, Deb, I know how passionate you are about AI, and we've talked offline a lot about the use of AI and how you're just a whiz at doing this, and you've inspired me personally to get better at it and to use it for good. And so I love that.
That's the key. Use your powers for good.
Right. And I think that certainly there are ways that the text type of AI, like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever your LLM of choice is, there are ways to help it, to use it so that it can help us create storylines or ideate about punchy storylines or grab sticky words. I mean, it can be used in the creation of the content, but I brought a different case story today about a different kind of AI, which is a rehearsal lab that is AI powered. And it's called Yoodli.ai.
Very cool. How do you spell that?
YOODLI.ai. And I have like both sides of the coin that I want to share. So Yoodli.ai is something our clients get when they come in, and it's a rehearsal gym. It's like going to the gym for rehearsal, and you get on the screen, you give your 5-minute pitch or introduction storyline, and it analyzes you. Okay. It analyzes your eye contact, your vocal pacing, your pitch, your filler words, your movement in the screen, words that you're repeating. It suggests ways to be more concise. It suggests questions you might receive from the audience. It is very thorough. However, and it's very powerful, and I like it because of the data it brings to me, but the human element is where we can fall into a problem. I had a client once who called me and she was in tears. She had used it too much without my help and without my knowing it. And she became reticent to do any virtual communications, period. This is a very high-powered 25-year like executive who suddenly fell off the ledge of like, it was, she was hearing tone, like it's mean to me, it's critical, it doesn't understand my situation. And I'm like, whoa, exactly. So we use AI at On Point, but you have to do a both and. It has to be, and I'll guide them and say, I want you to go to Udly and do 3 renditions of this. And I want you to pay attention to the data, but I don't care what it tells you about your eye contact because I told you to read your script. So I know what your situation is. It doesn't. So you have to use it with balance. And so that would be a really interesting learning that I had in the last year. I certainly never expected that, but it was a valuable learning. And I gave that leader 2 extra sessions to help her because I wanted to make sure she had a soft landing. But I was really grateful that she gave me that feedback.
That's an important takeaway and a really rich story to share, because that's one of the things that we're finding in our use of AI, that it is a collaboration. And even as much as it can behave like a human simulator, it is still not human. It's not thinking. And the big thing that it's missing that we have as a benefit as humans is we have the benefit of so many more types of input that we cannot even explain yet. We're still trying to understand and explain what consciousness means, what thinking means. We don't completely understand the brain yet. And so to let a robot be in judgment of you without completely, understanding the boundaries of how that's working, I think you bring up a really important point in the future of communication and the future of collaboration with AI, is that you do need to go into it with your eyes wide open, understanding what the limitations of this technology are in terms of how you are relating to it, which is different from the way that we've used technology before. We don't like relate to our devices or other applications, but in this context, you do. And so I think that's a really, really important story.
And that's what humans, our industry of executive coaching and storytelling, sure, AI can make some of that faster and it can generate a lot of creativity and into new zones. But, smart leaders know that they can't replace a human coach or a human, person to assist with what any of us do. It's impossible and it's wishful thinking. So, but that was an interesting story to share for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I love the both and takeaway there. I just really believe there's always a place for humans, even if that role is evolving along the way. There's still a magic that people bring that only humans can bring. Speaking of magic,
Yeah.
I've been watching you along the way as you are bringing a new book to life.
Yes.
And so I wanted to ask you a bit about that on the show. So can you tell us more about your book that is in progress or maybe even releasing soon?
It's releasing in a few months, and I'm hoping for end of May, end of Q2 this year.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
The name of the book is Red Light, Green Light: How Top Leaders Present with Polish, Get Buy-in, and Become More Influential. I'm still memorizing the subtitle because we've changed
wow.
it a
So
couple
this
of
is just
times.
like hot off the brainstorming board, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But this is a book that's about how to help leaders help their audience view their proposition as a green light of go. So and it's interesting. I'll explain that in a second. But this whole model that I built a messaging model that was tested by hundreds of early stage and mid stage founders who were seeking investment from investors and VCs. And my initial focus was on the investor pitch, the 5-minute investor pitch. And there is an arc to that. There is a formula, but so many founders were missing a core piece at the onset, which was guess, story, right? Some kind of context, some kind of sandbox to explain to the audience who doesn't know what they're talking about, what they were talking about, so that they could bring them aboard with the problem. So fast forward, I ended up getting invited by government labs and eventually fund managers and corporations to explore storytelling. And what was so cool, it's in line with our talk about catalyst and change, is that this model that originally was built for fundraising, investor pitch stuff, it has legs that now reach all the way up into the C-suite of corporate America, where you can massage the model to suit the situation that you're in. So the premise is, really quickly, that when you're in the audience and you're observing someone who's bringing to you some kind of proposition they want you to adopt, as an audience member, you see that speaker in front of you on the stage and you see them as a red light of risk, because you don't know what they're bringing. And even if you know them personally, you don't fully get their idea and what they're going to ask you to do. So you see them as a red light of risk. And it's the speaker's job to be able to pull the audience from the red light of risk through the yellow light to the green light of go. And the how-to model is the way to do that. And that's an acronym. So the audience is begging the speaker to H, hook me, get my attention. O, orient me, tell me what sandbox we're playing in, what's the problem in my terms, not yours, right? W in the word how is win me over, like, okay, what's your solution now that you've hooked me and oriented me? Win me over that what you are suggesting I buy into is legit, okay? And the word to in the how-to model is tell me more, and that's where you get to sing and dance around all the data and prove it that it's going to work. And the final letter is O for offer me. In other words, offer me something to do. That's the ask. And so for technical leaders and sciencey data people, they get to play around a ton in the letters W and T, like win me over, tell me about your thing, and the T for tell me more. That's where most audiences end up listening to content the most, in those WT letters. The H is lightning fast. And the O is that 60-second story we've been talking about, but it has to be selected carefully and strategically. And it's if you miss that first O, if you miss that, you are less likely to get to your audience to green, because they'll be confused. So that's what the book is about. It's very formulaic. It takes you through each letter of the how-to model in sequential order and explains how to do it. So I'm just thrilled to get the opportunity to bring this little innovation I did to market, which is exciting.
I can't wait to read this. I need this. I'm taking notes like crazy in my notebook here.
Awesome. Yeah. It's a way that, as I look back at the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about rhetoric. I realized about 3 or 4 years into On Point that I was kind of commercializing rhetoric, taking it out of the halls of academia where it's lived forever and bringing it to the world of leaders in professional settings and teaching them, what is rhetoric? What is this art form? And how should I use it for good?
Yeah. Well, and it's so important, whether you're trying to convince the board of some new direction, or you're just trying to get a department to adopt a new way of doing business.
Right.
That science of persuasion be a very powerful tool in the right hands. So I was curious if a leader listening today wanted to immediately improve their executive presence and messaging. I know that's another thing that you talk about. And you mentioned that while your formula translates to the C level and the board level, sometimes we're not showing up with that executive presence.
Right.
I'm just wondering if you have any actionable steps that they could take right now to develop that.
Yes, I'm thinking. So if we take, let's pick up the how-to model and kind of put it away for a second over here, and let's bring a new shape to this question. What It's a triangle, an equilateral triangle, and it's Aristotle's rhetorical triangle. And at the top, we have S for speaker, which is ethos, credibility. And this is where I'm going to go with your answer.
Okay.
On the lower left, we have A for audience. That's pathos or heart. And on the right of the lower part of the triangle, we have M, message. That's logos or head. So we have speaker, audience, message. And for executive presence, that's something that we want to employ everywhere, but especially in those impromptu moments that you're talking about where we want to elevate our executive presence. And so a quick question I ask folks is, you're going into this meeting, you're going to run this, and you need this meeting, this 30-minute meeting to go really well. Before we talk about how you're going to run the meeting, let's answer two questions. By the time people hang up the Zoom call or leave the room, how do you hope they feel about you? And how do you hope they feel about your message? So those are two parts of the triangle, right? How do we hope they feel about you, speaker, ethos, credibility? And how do you hope they feel about the thing you hope they do, or the topic that you're discussing? You hope they feel positive about it, that they feel motivated, inspired. And so then we have to figure out what are some of the ninja moves to use when we get into the meeting. So the fastest thing to drop here is to say, when you start a meeting, are you beginning with the end in mind? And are you letting the people in the meeting know what that is? So sometimes I do a lot with leaders on how to structure and run an effective meeting, which sounds like a really basic thing, but look how many meetings we're in all day, right? So when you get into a meeting and you say, hey, everybody, it's great to be here. Here are the 3 areas I'm hoping that we can cover today. And by the time we leave, I've got a choice we need to make so that we can get there. So we're going to go through these 3 things. If we're tight on time, I'm going to kind of wave my hand and get us back on track. Is everybody okay with that? And that part is important. Asking that buy-in, getting them to say, yes, I'm okay with that. Yes, I agree to do what you just said. Then you're like owning the show, you're running the meeting, but you've got everybody with you and we're all on the train, on the same track, right? Versus, 10 minutes of how was your weekend?
Mm-hmm.
So that is one way that you look good. You boost your executive presence when you can come prepared to run a meeting well, but also do it with connectivity and relationship. So you're not looking like a dictator.
Oh, okay. Just that right there.
Yeah, right?
That's a really good takeaway.
We're working with people, like we've been saying this whole half hour, like we need to have heart.
I'm already thinking of people I want to share this show with. So
awesome.
Before I go to my final question for you, Cindy, where can listeners learn more about you?
Sure. I am really active over at LinkedIn. That's the biggest pool of people that I interact with. So my name, is easy to find. Cindy Skalicky is my page for my personal stuff. And then On Point Communications is our company page. We also have so much at our YouTube channels, like hundreds of tips on how to improve your executive presence, between 1-minute length videos up to 5 or 6 minutes. And the titles ought to guide you pretty quickly to the skill you'll learn if you watch that video. So that YouTube channel is easy to find as well. It's just On Point Communications at YouTube, and you'll find droves of free, details there about upping your game.
Awesome. So there's a question that I love to ask all of my guests.
Yes.
What is one thing that leaders can do today to shape a more awesome future?
I know the answer to that one right off the bat, which is to know thyself. It means know your brilliance. and know your zone of brilliance so that you can share it with the world. That requires a little introspection and maybe even asking other people what they see as your zone of brilliance, which is a mind-blowing exercise and a lot of fun. But the more we know about what we are uniquely gifted at, the more power we can have to impact the future. I remember once thinking to myself, gosh, doesn't everybody know? Doesn't everybody know that you should only have like 25 words on a PowerPoint slide? And I got people telling me through in so many ways, no. People don't know that. And I realized in that moment and others like that, that those simple things that are so easy for me are not so easy for other people. And that's what tells you that you're in that zone of brilliance. So when you can learn what you are brilliant at and uniquely gifted at and articulate it well, then you can stand taller, speak louder, and move things further. And it's a beautiful symphony of brilliance.
Awesome. I love that so much. Cindy, thank you so much for sharing
Yes.
your
Thank you
insights with
so
us
much.
today.
I had a great time. Thanks so much, Deb. I'll talk to you again.
Awesome. To our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with a colleague who you think could benefit from these insights. I know I'm going to. Let's keep exploring the art of the possible together. And until next time, stay curious and choose to make awesome happen.